One of the most fun things about the Kentucky Derby Monster Pods we do here on the In the Money Media YouTube channel is we're not just talking to analysts and handicappers and horse players. We get to talk to connections from time to time. We have on the trainer of, for my money, the most interesting story in this year's Kentucky Derby. He trains Chunk of Gold. He is Ethan West. Ethan, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Things are great. Derby
Good.
season, very exciting. I'm going to start off with a very basic question about this horse. Now, when you were on with us a few weeks ago with Mikey P, you said you didn't really know the backstory of why Chunk of Gold was available for the purchase price he was for these owners, $2,500 taking on these millionaires in the Kentucky Derby. I'm curious if you've heard any scuttlebutt about it, or if you just view it as not your concern. You just deal with him once he gets to the shed row.
Yeah, no, honestly, not too worried about it. I haven't really dug into it at all, but I'm sure they have their reasons. A lot of people passed him up, obviously, but it's worked out well for all of us.
I was going to say, a lot of people regretting that decision. And you hear stories like this from time to time of just horses that fall through the cracks for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. Good horses can come from anywhere. He's great evidence of that. We've had people on these airwaves talking about the great deals they've gotten for $70,000 for a horse to run in the Kentucky Derby. And they're not wrong. But still, I think there's something special and fun about a horse that comes for this kind of purchase price. And I would imagine we'll be hearing a little bit about that David versus Goliath angle regarding Chunk of Gold. Let's get to the next really big question. How's he doing coming out of that last race?
He's doing well. Shipped back from Louisiana in good order, took back to the track. His energy levels right where we need it. Put a first work back into him this past weekend. That kind of got the motor running again for him. It's starting to get him fired back up. And this week's been, he's been real energetic, and we'll be back to working on Saturday morning.
That's great. It's good to hear that trajectory is going in the right direction. I know when you talked to Mikey P, you weren't sure about the next spot for him. What ultimately made you choose the spot you did, and are you pleased with how it all turned out?
Oh, absolutely. We're pleased with it. It worked out well. He trained and ran a lot better on the dirt than he did the synthetic. We liked the extra distance. We liked the longer stretch down there. The only thing we were worried about was the ship. It's a long ship if we wanted to do it twice. We left it into the horse's hands to make sure he'd come back out of it in good order, and it didn't knock too much out of him. And once we realized that, we were pretty hell-bent on going back down.
Tell me about the decision in terms of when you started thinking about him as a Kentucky Derby trail horse. There was a great story that you mentioned before, that if you didn't have such rotten weather in at Turfway this year, he might not have ended up in that stakes race as early as he did. But when did you first start thinking Derby?
Oh, exactly. The weather, for as bad as it was, it worked out in our favor. It was we took a chance going down to the Risen Star. Obviously, we stepped him up in class a lot from his first start to his second start, and handled that well. And then, stepped him up again, and we're like, kind of threw some darts at the wall here and see if something would hit. And he answered a lot of questions going down there the first time. And then once we got the first round of points, and we all kind of started thinking, well, wow, it's really not too far away if we can get another big performance. And once again, he stepped up to the task.
Everybody's got to answer the 1.25 mile question. How much better do you feel about Chunk of Gold already having seen him finish a race going farther than most of these horses have?
I like it. I don't think distance will be an issue. I think trip will be more of the concern. He was a lot closer that last race than what we ever envisioned. The winner actually came from where we were wanting to be. But Jareth rode him perfectly, and he said he matured a lot between races, and he came back into the Louisiana Derby stronger and sharper than he was for the Risen Star. And it was a learning curve for all of us. And now that we know he can run that way, it's nice to have in our pocket. And so Jareth will be able to put him wherever throughout the trip, inside, outside, close, far off of it. We're not going to be pace dependent by any means.
It seems like even in the last few days, this pace has gotten a lot more potentially supersonic with the news of the second Japanese horse coming over with East Avenue qualifying. With that in mind, if you were to and I'm asking you an unfair question here, but if you were to pick where you were to draw and where you might be in the early stages of the race from here, understanding it can change, what are you thinking?
I prefer the inside half of the field. I mean, if I had to pick a number, 6, 7, somewhere around in there. But I would rather have the 1 or the 2 hole than the 18 through 20 with him, just because I think he's a lot more focused under pressure down in on the rail. And then you don't have to worry about getting, being stuck wide or, using up or taking back. He should be able to break and run his own race early on.
Want to let folks know this video brought to you by our friends at TwinSpires.com. The Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge coming up on Derby Day. You can qualify all month long. TwinSpires.com. Navigate over to that tournaments tab. Get involved with horse racing's latest major tournament. I feel like that last run was even better than it looked on paper for that reason that you mentioned. When you can show more speed like that, still finish your race, and then lose to a horse that was coming as a deep closer, there's probably not too much, in my view, just as a horse player, between the top finishers in that race. I'm seeing him as a very live, long shot type horse. I mean, I don't expect the crowd is going to go nuts because there's so many different ways to go. It's the Kentucky Derby. But I mean, this horse, still the sky's the limit in terms of the ceiling. And obviously that's got to be the way you see it as the guy calling the shots.
Oh, absolutely. I've never been in this situation. It's awesome. And everybody keeps calling us the underdog, but the horse he stepped up to the plate every time, and, he's answered questions, and now, we just need it one more time.
Is it something special and fun about having Jareth Loveberry? You mentioned that your families have connections going way back. Being on this journey with him, does that mean something to you?
Oh, it's cool. It's an exciting ride, and even cooler to do it with friends.
Great stuff, my friend. Ethan, Godspeed to you. Godspeed to Chunk of Gold.
So I appreciate all that, and, a little bit of luck and we'll be all right.